Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Open Mic Comedy Podcast. I'm your host, Marc. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. This podcast is here for everybody on the open mic comedy circuit, whether you're a comedian, an MC, a promoter, or even a tutor. Hey, even comedy fans who enjoy watching the stars of the future in the pub basements we seem to inhabit. If you're thinking I can do that, then this podcast will guide you in what to expect on this crazy circuit from those right in the middle of it. Today's guest is, if you ask him directions to Leicester, don't expect a straight route. And he may even question, why do you want to go there? If he has a chair in his hand, duck. And so be careful about that one. He's a comedian who's definitely not shy of gigging when you see his gig list. So please welcome to the stage, it's Rohan Ashar. Hello, mate. How are you doing?
Hello, Marc. Yeah, good, thank you. Thank you very much for having me on, and thank you for the intro. I was wondering what you were going to say, and that pretty much summed it up, I think.
I had to get chairs and Leicester in there. I had to.
Oh yeah, you had to, like I have to get them into, probably half of my stand-up sets. So it's only fair, isn't it?
How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, I'm doing all right. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay, thank you. Just busy with work, but now getting back into the fun side of life and doing this kind of stuff is always nice. So yeah,
absolutely.
And the sun's come out, so that's actually a positive for a change. I'm not used to this.
The sun has come out. Yeah, it's supposed to be nice weather this week, and I remember whenever February or March when it started getting lighter in the evenings. And when I'd leave my house to go to a gig, it'd be daylight or dusk, and I'd be like, this makes me feel a little bit better, you know?
Yeah, definitely. So when did comedy all start for you then, and why did you get into it?
So I actually started before I went to uni. I did a handful of gigs, and the reason I started is because so I used to play a decent amount of sports. That was kind of my main hobby, and I suffered a really nasty knee injury. I would have made it professional if the knee injury didn't happen. You know, that old chestnut. I wasn't amazing, but it took up a lot of my time. And I got injured playing five-a-side football. I'd just for the record, I'd scored 5 goals in the game before I got injured. So just missed out on the double hat trick. But I did feel quite sorry for myself for a while. And I think I hadn't really interacted with stand-up as an art form before that. And I think I started watching stand-up clips on YouTube just in the evenings after I'd done my homework or whatever, and have a laugh, and it made me feel better. And throughout my teens, I did sort of amateur drama at a theatre in Watford called the Pump House. Big up the Pump House. So I'd done like comedy acting. I'd done a lot of public speaking by that point. And I really enjoyed the comedy side of acting. So I think I was walking through school one day talking to one of my friends, my friend Dylan, and I think I was probably feeling very sorry for myself, wallowing, but also saying, I'm watching stand-up comedy, like, oh, Dylan, have you like seen Paul Chowdhury do stand-up or whatever? And he suggested to me, why don't you try it yourself? So I did. It was kind of a thing of, I know I can be funny in characters. I know I can stand on a stage, but can I be funny as myself doing stand-up? Yeah. And I think I waited like half a year or something of sort of writing before I did my first gig, which was at just like a showcase event at Pump House. And it went really, really well. So, yeah, I kind of just enjoyed it a lot, went well, felt like I was onto something. So that's how it started.
So you spent quite a bit of time then prepping. You didn't just go up with kind of like a wing and a prayer. You actually kind of really prepped for the first gig.
Yeah, because I think I spent a while writing, trying to figure out whether my jokes were actually funny or whether there was anything funny in my life. So I sent it to a few friends, like just these raw scripts scribbled out, going, is there anything in this? Is this actually funny? Yeah. And there was, luckily. So yeah, but I didn't like know the open mic circuit. existed. I mean, I've only joined the open mic circuit fairly recently. I just did a couple of, I guess, gigs at Pump House, and I think I did a handful of gigs before I went to uni, just at the Pump House and at local things. None of them, like, I don't want to say proper gigs, but no circuit gigs per se. And then I think I did a couple at uni, and then COVID hit. So then suddenly we're post-COVID. I'm at the end of my second year of uni. I'd become the president of the Comedy Society there, and I'd say that's when I really started doing comedy. So my third year of uni, kind of back end of 2021, and then from there, I was running the society, so I was organising the gigs, I was producing shows, I was emceeing the stand-up gigs that we did at uni, and we did quite a lot. We're quite active.
Yeah.
And then I kind of took a break the year after because I was working for the Students' Union. So I had a phase where I did 3 gigs in 2 weeks, and that was about it for an entire year. Then did the Edinburgh Fringe, the 2023 Edinburgh Fringe, with an improv show, did some stand-up on the side there, moved back here, did a solo show at the Watford Fringe about my university experience, which is a crazy thing to do. Like, it was 40 minutes, and I hadn't really done much stand-up before that. And then I took another long break, and then joined the open mic circuit in London. I think it was the middle of June 2024, and have been doing things a bit more normally since then.
I was going to say, because, I mean, you're just saying you've done a few gigs, then you've gone to the Fringe, and then you've done a 40-minute show, all probably what most people on the open mic circuit would consider very, very soon. You know, because most people don't get to do those kind of things until 2 years in of proper full-time gigging almost. So it's quite a step. Yeah,
it was. I mean, it was really weird. My first gig was, I think it was 10 minutes. And yeah, doing the Watford Fringe shows, I think I'm really lucky because the Watford Fringe, I mean, I know a lot of people from Pump House. I have a lot of sort of family and friends who will come to watch those shows. So they were okay, and I had a supportive audience, but I do acknowledge that they were very soon. And also, in hindsight now, I'm like, what? That's a really weird thing to do. I mean, I wouldn't go as far as saying I regret it, but I do completely acknowledge that kind of the way I've done things is unconventional, which is why sort of in the last years when I've sort of been doing things more conventionally the way everyone else does it on the open mic circuit, and learning a lot that way.
I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. You've cut your teeth in a slightly different way. You know, if you think about, if you've ever listened to like Paul Surtees' first ever gig was a gong show at Beat the Blackout. You know, that's just insane.
Oh, wow. I don't think I would have continued doing comedy if that was my first gig.
But he just got into it in a very different way. But we kind of all converge at some point anyway. And you just get different experiences, and you've learned how to put together 40 minutes of material, you know, quite early on, which is quite impressive.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a really fun show to do, and I think it was kind of in a way what I need. It helped. Comedy for me helps me process things, and definitely when I started or early on, it really helped me process things because it was kind of a distraction. So when I moved back from uni, in my mind, I was like, I need to do a comedy show about it. That's the way I'm going to process this whole move back, this huge move in my life, and it actually worked on a like mental health level. It kind of worked for me, which is really weird. And I guess I didn't go through the conventional route of doing a comedy course either. But again, I got very lucky because one of my friends at Pump House, their dad is a performer, brilliant performer. He used to do stand up on the circuit. I think, I don't want to get this wrong, I think it was a character act, but he had experience with the comedy circuit. So after I'd done that first gig, he came up to me and he said, Rohan, that was great, really well done. I used to do comedy on the circuit, so if you want advice on how to get started and about comedy, here's my phone number, let's talk. And also one of the things he said was, what I'm going to say right now is, that went really well. Did you record it? And I was like, no. He said, you've got to record every gig. You've got to record. And so I learned that lesson. But smartly, I did take him up on the offer. And I think it was a week later, I had this really long call with him and I'm so grateful for it, where he basically gave me a load of advice and guidance that you would get on a comedy course. So that kind of helped me get started. So yeah, I'm very appreciative of that.
Yeah, I bet. So how many gigs have you done now then, do you think?
Well, I'm autistic, so I know. I do have my document. It's 173.
Nice.
Yeah.
So out of those 173, what's the best and what's the worst?
I'll start with the worst. I think that the bad gigs are usually just the quiet ones where there's a small audience or there's no audience, so you basically get nothing and it's the same for every act, and usually there aren't any like very established professional acts who can save it. And I've learned through listening to the podcast and through spending time on the open mic circuit that when there's a gig like that, you can't sit there and think, I'm going to save this, because you're not. Everyone's of a fairly similar standard and you're all going to struggle for it. But I think the worst one was when I was with at the 2023 Edinburgh Fringe. I wasn't sort of running the Comedy Society anymore or whatever, but I was there with the improv show, and we did, I think, one Comedy Society one-off stand-up show, and it was good. It was my last bit with the Comedy Society, so I asked if I could MC it, and they were like, yeah, no problem. I MC'd it, and I absolutely bombed. I completely bombed. It was horrendous. I was dreadful. And the thing is, it wasn't even a bad audience. The audience were nice. The acts all did great.
Yeah.
But I just stank up the place MCing.
Right.
And that was my last bit of stand-up with the Uni Comedy Society, and I felt awful after it. I was like, what have I just done? But yeah, I just completely bombed, which was weird. I guess, I hadn't MC'd for a while, and I don't know what happened, but yeah, that's definitely my worst gig, because I can't even blame it on anything else apart from myself.
Right.
I did another bad one. I did have a hard time the first time I did Up the Creek. I'm not one of them who did a gong show early on. I think it was September last year. That was the first time I did a gong show. It was at Up the Creek. Some of it was my fault, some of it wasn't. So basically there were these sort of lads, but laddie lads, like young sort of Andrew Tate lads in the second row or something, and the MC at the start was sort of umming and ahhing whether to give one of the cards to them because they were quite rowdy and whatever. He ended up giving a card. The person on before me was a certain person that a lot of people, I'm not going to name names, a lot of people on the circuit will know who this is, but basically comes out with some of the most misogynistic, racist, horrendous material. And he was doing his most misogynistic stuff. But the laddie lads kept him on.
Right.
And so, like, half the audience was shouting off or gong or whatever. 2 of the cards went up straight away. Management didn't pull it, didn't do that. And I think, Jack Scullion was there that night, and he called it out I think he called it out when he went on stage, but I wasn't there for that because I fucked off at the interval. And he called it out on Instagram and stuff. So then I go on after that, going, hello, I'm autistic. I once threw a chair. No chance. So, and I also made a huge mistake, and I'm saying this, I learned a very harsh lesson that day. I have a bit in my set, as you know, Mark, where I asked an audience member, what would have happened if you threw a chair at someone in school? And I decided, what a great idea. Let's pick on these laddie lads. And I don't know why the hell I did that. But I did, and they didn't give me a straight answer, and I got stuck on that.
Right.
And when you don't get to your next joke soon enough at a place like Up the Creek, you're gonna go. So yeah, that was it was a difficult experience. You kind of need those difficult experiences, and I learned my lesson from it. So I wouldn't say it was, in a way there were silver linings to it. But yeah, that's another sort of tough gig. And I think the other gigs that are hard or bad are the ones that aren't set up for comedy. I had a fair few of those at university, especially when I was initially the start of my time running the Comedy Society, because we kind of didn't know any better. You'd get some random people going, oh, can you come and do comedy for us? And there was one gig where I think my first time emceeing, it was an event, there was music, and I was trying to MC and do a comedy gig while in a huge hall where there was music on the other side of it. And and the guy organising it was super rude to me and stuff. And I was trying to hold it together, half the acts, and I really don't blame them, got 2 minutes into their set, I'm like, I'm just not doing this. Yes. Yeah, those are kind of the worst moments. I know you asked for one, but sorry.
No, it always unravels whenever you ask for one. Somebody always gives 2 and 3, and it's fun because you kind of relive those experiences. But a lot of the times you have learnings from those experiences and stuff. So have you actually been back to the Blackout since?
I have. I went. It was January, I think, and I went into that one going, I want to do my autism material no matter what. I just want to see how it goes here. Because there was other material that I knew I could do that might be better for a gong show, but I just wanted to see how it does. I think I got unlucky because the person 2 on before me was an autistic act who, his whole set was about autism and he did really well. Not to say you can't coexist with our autistic acts, I'll get onto that later, but I want to phrase this in the right way. So when I go on stage, you don't immediately know I'm autistic.
Yes.
With other acts, sometimes you do.
Yeah.
If that sounds like the correct way to phrase it. So that was kind of the case here. And then in between was Nicky G, who is a fantastic act, lovely guy. Yeah. He smashed it. He absolutely smashed it. He ended up winning that night, and the guy on before him, the autistic act, came runner-up. So I was kind of there like, I know I shouldn't do the autism material, and I know I'm going on after 2 acts who have completely smashed it, so the audience, they have to love me to keep me on here.
Yeah.
But I said to myself, I'm doing the autism material, I'm doing it. It went fine. I was getting laughs and stuff, and it was a night where the card holders were just quite harsh, so the audience were laughing, enjoying a set, but the card holders were just, I only think 5 people got through out of whatever, 20 or something. Yeah. So it went well, but I just got gonged off. So I was kind of like, but I'm there on Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm there on Thursday this week, so yeah, I'm not doing the autism material.
Okay.
I'm doing my sort of 5 that I've curated for competitions and gong shows. So we'll see how that goes.
So that's an interesting topic in itself, is having 2 kind of different sets. And I think there's a lot of people out there, me included, that kind of when you go to like a gong show or something else like that, or a competition, you kind of go with your normal set thinking, it'll be fine. But then you don't realize that there's the competitions and the gongs, and then there's normal open mic nights. And sometimes they do require 2 different sets of material because it's 2 different things to go into. And I never actually appreciated that until I did my second ever gong show, and was just like, okay, mine stuff isn't ready for, it's too long. It's too long-winded, and the payoff is at the end. And if they get bored, then you're never getting to the payoff.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, yeah, I think it's been covered on this. It has been covered on this podcast before, where gong shows are essentially anti-comedy. When you do sort of open mic gigs or other gigs, even you have 5, 7, 10 or whatever to sort of build up, have the audience. Obviously, you want to get laughs in early, but you have that time.
Yeah.
But gong shows, you've got to do something in the first minute, otherwise you're just going to get sent off, which is not quite how comedy works.
No. So you've kind of curated two different styles then for one for gongs and one for open mic.
I think it was that for a while. So what I've done is because at the moment I'm doing quite a mix almost every week of 5, 7s and 10s. So there's kind of some material that I'll only do in a 7 or 10. So for example, my autism chair throwing bit, for context, I talk about autism. I once threw a chair at someone in school, and I basically use that as the basis of the whole story of how I got my autism diagnosis and explaining autism. I just can't do it justice here, but and in total that's quite a long bit, and it takes a bit. There are laughs in it, but if I do that in a 5, I don't really have time to do much else in the 5.
Yeah.
So I have stopped doing that in 5-minute sets because I just can't give it the kind of time because you want to pause, you want to deliver it correctly. I just can't do it. I don't feel like I can do it complete justice in a 5. So I only do that in 7s and mostly 10s now. So the 5 I've got is it's designed as my core 5, which I will take to a new place if I kind of want to impress and go, look, this is who I am, for competitions and for gong shows. So that's kind of my core 5 set, and then 7s and 10s I do other stuff. But I guess if we want to think about it in a way, I have 4 different 5 sets.
Okay.
Of material that I've just been working on. So there's but I mainly use 1.
Yeah. So how often do you write then?
It depends, really. I'm not one of those who will sort of sit with a blank page and force myself to write. I let ideas come to me. So when I sit down, it's either to construct a set together or edit some material or develop an idea I've had. So I guess there's not really, there is structure and there isn't structure. I kind of write when I have the time, when I need to, but there's no, I guess, routine to it.
Okay.
But after every gig, either on the night or the morning after, I will analyze the video of the gig, analyze the set, and do a bit of editing for the next set or whatever to say. Or the morning of a gig, I'll decide, or the day before, I'll decide what material I'm doing, construct the set if I'm doing something different and need to, piece different bits together. So
you've got no issue with kind of looking over yourself on stage or anything else like that? You're quite comfortable looking at what you've done and stuff like that?
I've got used to it. I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy it. But I just look at it as, something I have to do. I'm my own harshest critic. So I kind of just think I have to do it. This is my process. So I'm going to do it. And I think especially with bad gigs, I'll watch it on the way back, like on the tube home. I'm a big subscriber to I know there's a technical name for it, the 10 a.m. rule. Where
11 a.m. rule.
11 a.m. rule. All right, sure.
Yeah, Sarah Millican's
it probably
thing.
is 11 a.m. someday. Yeah. 11 a.m. I need to remember that. Yeah, so obviously if you've had a bad gig, or even if I'm frustrated at myself about something in the gig, even though it's gone fairly well, do everything, all the analysis, all the thinking by 11 a.m. the next day. So I follow that quite, because I am often annoyed at myself. So I've had to train myself to just be nicer to myself.
Right.
Because I'll like come off, like sometimes I'll have a good gig and I'll be like, I don't like the way I delivered this one line. And on the way home, I'm just like, yeah, cool. Just deliver it in the way you want it next time. It doesn't matter. Like you've had a decent gig, so just just relax a bit, man.
Yeah, it's when you come off stage and somebody comes like, "Oh, that's really good, really good." You go, "Yeah, but I forgot that bit."
Yeah,
But nobody
exactly.
knows you've forgotten it. Nobody knows you've forgotten it. It's
No,
just doesn't matter. But you and yourself go, that was the bit I wanted to get out. That was what I wanted to do. And when I come off stage, my brain's like, the adrenaline's pumping in. My brain just goes into a fog. And if somebody said to me, "What did you
yeah,
talk about?" I'd be like, I honestly can't remember. I just went on
yeah.
a thing where I spoke and I couldn't tell you what I said and what I didn't say.
I gaslight myself into either like I'll be watching the next set and just my mind will go, Brad, did you say that line?
Yeah.
And then I'll think to myself, I don't remember if I said the line or not, but I must have because I've done this set, I know it and it was, I wasn't fumbling on stage, like it went smoothly. So I must have said the line. And I'm like, oh God, I need to watch the video to see if I said that line. Or you gaslight yourself into thinking it went sometimes worse than it did.
Yeah.
And and then I'll have to watch the video and go, oh no, that went fine. Why am I? Yeah, but as you say, it is the fog when you go off stage because you've been so focused for however long you're on stage, adrenaline. You've probably most of the time enjoyed it, so you're not going to think straight, and that's one of the important things about recording. You have that objective sort of record of the gig, so there's no doubt, there's no gaslighting. Once you watch the video, you hear the audio, you know what happened, right?
Yeah. So, what is your favorite joke then from your list of your big repertoire? Then, what's your most favorite one?
This is a hard one. I don't know if I have like one single favorite joke. I'd say so. The curry nights routine I have is basically, again for context, that it's in my main five. It's this routine about how I guess white British people, the way they eat Indian food and go to Indian restaurants is very different to how I would with my Indian family. And kind of, you guys call it a curry night. I just call it a night. Oh, what? But that's what the whole thing of, oh, we're going for a curry. I'm like, don't you mean Indian food? And there's more Indian food than just curry. But so that's the first bit of stand up I ever wrote. Obviously, it's much different now, but there are a couple of punchlines still in the set that remain from the original version. So I kind of got to say those are my favorite jokes because they've survived, and I think obviously they still work because if they weren't getting laughs, I'd take them out. But I think they're one of. I don't know whether I should say one of them. Maybe I could. I think the one I remember writing. So there's this bit in the set where I talk about how sometimes people, when the poppadom comes to the table, they smash the poppadom. And I kind of asked the audience, who here does that? Does anyone do it? And then the next line is, I thought British brutality to Indians ended in 1947. And I think that might be my favorite because when I wrote it, I remember that was the first, I don't want to say, for want of a better word, risky joke that I wrote. The joke that's a bit, I don't know, dark or a bit edgy or whatever you want to say. But because all my material was very friendly, apart from that, and that was the first one I wrote that kind of goes a bit to the line and has a bit of the shock factor. And it's still in my set. So I think I have an affinity to that line, and I do like it.
Yeah, I think there's something, isn't there, in British humour where they kind of like stuff like that that's a little bit close to the edge, that's taking the mickey out of themselves, and using those kind of things rather than. Very few people ever see it as like an attack. The British just seem to laugh at themselves so much about it.
Because it is a punching up joke. That's the key thing about, and I think everyone knows that. So,
yeah,
everyone knows there's truth behind the joke. And obviously it's, I guess the framing is, I think I've become much better at framing my material in a way of this is just friendly banter.
Yeah.
Rather than people thinking I'm actually annoyed. Which I am a bit, but like the way you frame it, the way you are on stage, hopefully I've been working hard on, we're just having fun here kind of
thing. I think you can, honestly, whenever I've seen you, that is the impression I always get, is you just see a guy on stage telling jokes and having fun and not is doing it for entertainment purposes and not to be offensive to anybody. And I think if anybody could ever see your routine and go, that's offensive, you'd be like, no, well, you're just wrong.
No, there was a guy. So it was at GMB at the Star of Kings. I was headlining. It was a couple of months ago, and I was in the middle of my Curry Nights bit. I heard a bit of commotion at the back of the audience, and then I heard someone telling someone else to shut up, going like, "Shut up! What are you doing? Shut up!" But it kind of stopped before I had to address it. Afterwards, or at the interval or whatever, there was a couple of acts who were at the back, and they said, "Oh, Rohan, do you hear that?" I was like, "Yeah, what was going on?" And they said, "There was a guy just in the back corner, saying your material's racist." And he's sitting there just saying, like my Curry Nights bit, he's going, "Oh, that's racist. That's racist against white people. It's racist against white people." So the acts told him to shut up.
Right.
And then they pointed him out, and he kind of walked past me. He looked at me, and then he walked up and walked out of the pub. So that was the only time that's ever happened. But
so what was that your very first ever joke you ever wrote?
So the Curry Nights bit was the first bit of comedy I ever wrote. I don't remember which joke I physically wrote first, but that was the first bit of comedy that I ever wrote, I think.
Hi there, I'm Reb Day from episode 36, and I do apologise for this interruption of the Open Mic Comedy podcast. Every week, one comedian painstakingly takes us through their journey into the comedy world, and even though it might sound like they hate talking about themselves, they actually love it. And I hear you asking, how? How can I, a person with the ability to listen to podcasts, give back to those whose idea of a good night out is being applauded at and praised? The answer is simple. And the answer is brilliant, because it's free. All you need to do is give the Open Mic Comedy podcast a like, a follow, and hey, maybe even a 5-star review. Thank you so much for listening to the Open Mic Comedy podcast. I've been Reb Day. Let's jump back into the episode.
So on the actual circuit then itself, how have you've been on it for coming up to a year, I guess. How have you found it? Because I thought you were way more experienced than that, to be perfectly honest. When you just said 24, I was just like, really?
Is it? Oh yeah. No, so yeah, obviously I did comedy before the London circuit, which I think obviously helped in a way that, when I started going from sevens, from 5s to 7s, 7s to 10s, a lot of it maybe wasn't new material, but I was taking material that I'd done before, reworking it, improving it. And I obviously knew some stuff about stand-up before that, which helped. I actually did my dissertation, so I studied English at university, and I did my dissertation on stand-up comedy.
Okay.
So I learned a lot through that as well. So of all your key core stand-up books, like your Adam Bloom and those sorts of books, I scoured and read and took lessons from. And there was some stuff, I think I have a document of notes for me that I was doing that weren't going to go in my disc, but were just interesting stuff that I picked up. But yeah, anyway, I've found the open mic circuit great. I'll be honest, I was really worried. Last year, when I was umming about whether to go back to comedy and what I actually want from comedy, one of the things that brought me back was wanting to sort of talk about autism on stage and tell my story. Like the want to do that material kind of brought me back to comedy. So when I did that autism material in June, it was completely new. And then I did a solo show in July of last year at the Watford Fringe, which was sort of my whole story about autism. It had a couple of serious bits in it as well. That was my last bit of unconventionality. But I was worried about sort of doing gigs 2-3 times a week. I was like, will I be able to sit through that? Will I get on with people? Will I not? I was genuinely, will I be able to find people to come with me? I was genuinely like, I don't know how I'm going to find this. And I think I really credit the people on the open mic circuit. I think my first few gigs back were on the circuit were G&B, and you just had people coming up to you and talking to you and going, oh, that was really good, mate, and just speaking to you. And I know it's quite cliche. I know a lot of people say this, but they say it because it's genuinely through the community on the open mic circuit. It genuinely is, for the most part, a really, really wonderful community. And people are really approachable and you can speak to them. And I think that really helped, because now I feel like I'm one of the acts who's been on the circuit for a while, and I'll do that to newer acts. I'll make that effort because that's just the thing to do, right? And also I have to give a lot of credit to, I have a good group of friends who will support me, be my bringers. I've cut down a lot on the amount of bringer gigs I do. But they've really helped me, because you can't start on the London circuit without, having the people to go with you to the gigs. So I found it really good, and I really feel like I'm part of the community. I know a lot of people. I have comedy friends now, I think, which is a really nice thing, and you find ways to, you get used to it and you enjoy the gigs, because even if it's just acts there, or you don't have a bringer, you're with other acts who you get on with. So you're genuinely enjoying yourself in the audience. You're enjoying watching people progress. You're enjoying watching comedians you haven't seen before, or material you haven't seen before. Because there's loads of good acts on the circuit. There's loads of good nights who, set up a really good atmosphere. So I am genuinely enjoying it. And I have my kind of system is, I kind of have 3 things, which is, am I enjoying it? Am I learning or improving? And am I progressing?
Yeah.
And if I'm doing 2 out of 3 of those on a weekly basis, I'm not thinking too deeply about. I'm just thinking about what's next, what am I doing? And I am. There hasn't been a week where I feel like I'm only doing 1 or 0 of those things. So that's the way.
The one thing I've come, when I look back at doing the open mic circuit and stuff, the one thing that I've always kind of enjoyed about it is you don't know what you're going to see. And I think that element of surprise is actually really quite entertaining, because you go to any comedy show, you see the lineup, you kind of go, okay, that's what I'm expecting. But then when you go to a show and you go, and I don't know, somebody like Moss turns up, and you're like, okay, this isn't what I would class as normal comedy, but it is comedy, and it's entertaining, and it's something so different. So you haven't seen the same thing over and over and over. You just get that little break and that little bit of a surprise every night. I mean, I challenge anyone to go to a night, and if you see somebody like Moss or Yogi Bell or Richard Walford and not walk away remembering that, you must be daft, because they just kind of, those kind of acts just surprise you.
There are acts like that, and it's really funny, because I think with some character acts, I sort of saw them, I'm like, because you see them before you speak to them off stage, and then you talk to them off stage, and they're just a regular guy, and you're like, oh, you're a great performer. That was really believable.
Yeah.
And then you're just having a drink and a really just a regular guy. You're like, okay, cool.
Yeah, I remember one of the first times I saw Yogi Bell do his thing, and then I was talking to a guy after, and it was him, and I hadn't realised. And I was just like, oh shit!
I don't think I've ever seen Yogi Bell.
Haven't you? Oh, when you do, you will. If you'd seen him, you'd remember him. But I like the element of surprise and stuff, and just, you don't know what you're going to get. And even when you see I think that part of the community thing as well is that when you see an act that does something for, you've seen them do it 5 times before or whatever, you start spotting subtle differences in maybe their mannerisms or
100%.
stuff like that, and how they've delivered a punchline or changed a punchline or moved something. And you kind of go, oh yeah, that works better. And I always think that's quite nice to, especially when somebody notices it as well.
I think it is. I think it and it works both ways. You know, I have people who I know people who, when I came onto the open mic circuit, they were just starting out like fresh. You know, a couple of the people at G&B and things like that, and I've seen them sort of every time I've seen them since, they've improved, and they're, you know, on now compared to then, they're so much more confident in their delivery and how they are on stage. And it's really nice to see, and you tell them that, you're like, you know, and then when people say that to you as well, or, you know, this stuff has really developed, or you're so much, I don't know, there's this difference in your delivery, it's really nice to hear. It really is. And sometimes people will give me, I'm very open to feedback and advice, so sometimes I'll shout him out. Nick Morey, who is an actor at Gym, he's one of them who just gets better every time I see him. It's really good. And it was a few weeks ago where I was sort of trying to rework my core 5, and there were a couple of jokes that I think I probably put in my 7s that Nick was like, oh, I used to do, and Nick was like, Rohan, why? Like, you could just have these in your 5 and they'd still work. And they'd kind of, because I think I was talking about how my setup's too long and I want to find a way to shorten it and put more jokes. And he's like, why don't you put these jokes back in and just do that? And I did. And I was like, why didn't I think of that before? But this is someone who knows me, who's seen me, giving me that suggestion, and it's really worked and really helped me. So yeah, big up Nick.
I mean, I actually quite like the support as well, because I remember we had an interaction back in January. You may not remember. You may remember. I don't know. We both did, or I don't know if you were doing or if you were a bringer. I was doing the new act competition at G&B, and it didn't go particularly well. And I came off, and you said to me,
yes.
You were harshly treated that night. And I was just like, okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, stand by it. I don't remember the night that much, but I wouldn't have said it if I didn't actually mean it.
There was a couple of others that said that to me as well that night. They were like, we were really enjoying it, but I think in that room I had half the room were quite enjoying it and half the room just didn't like it whatsoever. It was kind of it was an odd situation to be in.
It happens, especially at competitions.
Yeah. So we've done the positives on the circuit. What are there any things you would change with a wish list? You know, this isn't I think so and so should do this, or so. It's I would like to see.
Yeah, there are a few things, and I will, you know, before I say those things, I have a lot of respect for people on the open mic circuit, for promoters, for the gigs I do. This is not supposed to be a criticism. It's just kind of personal preferences. That's all it is. The first one is, I wish promoters of open mic gigs would let you know when they've done their bookings. So, because I think promoters on the open mic circuit know what it's like to be an act. So I think, and there are people who really run their gigs in this particular aspect that way. You look at Chris Alley at the OM does this. Comedy at Spit and Sawdust do this. Richard Part Too Far does this. I know more people do it. Those are just the ones I remember. Where they will put on their Instagram story, just, look, all spots are allocated. Sorry, we couldn't get you on. Keep applying. That's cool, because sometimes you're sitting there, you've applied to a gig a couple of weeks ago, and you're like, is this past the point? You just don't know. And I think it just makes it easier for calendar management if you know when you can apply to another gig and then not have to go through the stress of having double booked yourself, which I really try not to. I don't scattergun apply. I try and do it in a way that's respectful to promoters. So yeah, it's kind of a two-way street. So I think it's not even emailing every single person, because I know that takes a lot of time, but just because a lot of gigs will put on their Instagram or whatever when they're open for bookings.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're creating an illusion with general audience who are following, because they're saying comedians come and perform. So just go, all spots, all lineups sorted for next month. Just done.
Yeah. That's always been my biggest thing, is that if you can mass email out everybody to say spots are open, you can mass email back to say, if you've not heard, you've not been picked. Try again next month. I don't see the excuse for not doing it. People say, "Oh, you got so many people to reply to." No, just reply to everybody saying, if you applied, and you haven't heard, you've not been successful. If you want to come along to the nights, these are the dates and these are the ticket links, so you get a chance to promote yourself as well.
I completely respect it. I know promoters have a hard job trying to get everyone on. You can't do every gig every month. I will never take that personally. I think it's just nice to know either way.
Yes, I agree. I actually used to have a diary where I would log every night I've applied for, and I would see which ones were coming through and which ones were not coming through. And I'd also know, because I'm very much like you in that I never want to be in that position where I apply for 2 nights on the same two different places on the same night, and then I end up, for some whatever miracle reason, they both come back and say, "Yeah, come on in," and I'm like, "What? Which one do I pick? Do you pick the slightly bigger one that might give you a bit more opportunity? But does that mean blowing out a regular one that you do a lot, or what? It's not the best."
I respect the promoters who I gig for, and I don't want to do that. So I don't. I did have someone tell me that I could be more of a dickhead about it, but I'm like, I don't really want to be.
No, there's no need to be a dickhead about it, but it's just, I don't know. Sometimes you have to be. I think, not necessarily being scattergun, but give it a week or so, and if you haven't heard, then apply for somewhere else for a night, and then just, if they come back to you and say, "Well, I didn't hear from you for 2 months," so
you do have some that take 2 or 3 weeks, but if they do that, I think they completely get it as well. If someone's gone 2 weeks later and been offered another gig, then there is understanding from promoters about that, I think. The another one is, this might be, I don't want this to be controversial at all. That's not a good way to start a sentence. It's not controversial. I know a lot of comedians agree with me on this. I just don't know whether they'd say it publicly. I personally, and again, I'll say, I enjoy gigs that do this. I respect promoters that do this. They have their reasons. I just personally don't enjoy it. I don't like clap-offs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a fan of the clap-off format, because I think it's good for new acts who, like really new acts. It's a really nice confidence boost and that sort of thing. But I think if you're a newer act who's done decently and then you don't get selected for the clap-off, or you don't win the clap-off, it can quite unnecessarily make you feel a bit shit. And even if I'm at a gig, like, I know not to take these things personally, and whatever, like, I'm chill either way. But sometimes it can, you've had a decent gig, and then, but you're not good enough to sort of get in the cut, and it just feels a bit unnecessary, because we can go home, everyone's had a good gig, everyone's done well, or most people have done well, and they just remain thinking that. But then a clap-off kind of skews that bit, and I understand why some promoters do it, and there are great gigs who do clap-offs. There are really good gigs who do clap-offs, and I don't think it ruins the quality of the gig at all. And I genuinely mean that. There are great gigs who do it. And I just think, like, why can't, if someone's done particularly well, there's a few people who've done particularly well, just email them after, then do it in front of everyone. But and I think especially for me, I think when I was starting on the open mic circuit, I'd go to a clap-off, felt like I'd done all right, not get in the clap-off or get anything from it, and then I'd feel shit that I was like, do I really need to feel this way? But you kind of can't help it. So yeah, that's why. But I know promoters have their reasons, but I just, I'm personally not a huge fan of that format.
No, I agree with you again. I don't see what it really achieves, but
yeah, there is one more issue I'd like to bring up, which is promoters can book more than one South Asian or autistic act on their bills. You can do it. No, nothing will go wrong. And I think this is something that started to play on my mind a bit more recently. I understand, like, promoters have a hard job sort of balancing their bills, getting a diverse range of acts, and everyone wants that on there. But I think it's when I see gigs consistently, blatantly only booking, like limiting it to one South Asian act and one autistic act, sort of every week or every month. And it's like, and you know, I can know it because I've applied to that gig and they've only booked. There's a cycle, especially South Asian acts. There are, there's not a huge selection to choose from. I know there's a pool and I'll see one of them on a list that I've been rejected from and kind of go, but we can coexist on the same bill. It's same with sort of autistic acts. We can exist on the same bill. I got rejected from a gig recently where the promoter actually said to me, like, oh, we have similar people on the lineup, so you won't have a good gig. And I was like, I don't think that's the way to phrase it, because I often, like, if there's been a South Asian or autistic act on before me, depending on what material I'm doing, I will adapt to that and I will acknowledge it and often integrate it into my set and still do well. I think some gigs look like a BBC panel show where they blatantly just filled quotas and just gone, right, we got a South Asian, we've got our sort of 2 or 3 women, we've got our whatever you want, and it's just you can just see the quotas filled. And I think there is a place for that. There is, quotas are okay to an extent, they get us started. But if you're sticking to them and then rejecting another act just because they're South Asian and you already have one, then that becomes tokenism.
Yeah.
And then we're going in the wrong direction again. I don't know if I phrased that well, but
I think you have phrased it quite well. I understand what you mean. You want to be judged on you as a funny person rather than everything else that's around it.
And I've had people tell me, like, you'd be too similar to another act, and I'd be like, look, if we're looking at 2 Indian acts, it's a broad range of stuff within it. If you even talk about your culture, which I choose to do, and I have my reasons for that, because that sort of ethnic banter is kind of my sense of humor. So I'm obviously going to portray my sense of humor on stage. There's a lot, like, 2 Indian comedians can talk about 2 different parts of Indian culture and do it really, really differently. And I think there's some people, when they talk about comedy, don't acknowledge that. They're like, oh, you're just a brown comedian. You're all kind of similar. And it's similar with other autistic acts. Obviously, I'm speaking from the perspective of someone who does Indian and autistic material. It will apply to other sort of, identity areas, if that's even the term. But yeah, same with other autistic. Like, I'll bring up the example of Adam Dorr, who's fantastic. He's a fantastic actor. Of course you book him. And we get on really well. I feel like there's a lot of mutual respect between us. We don't feel like we're in competition with each other, even though recently we have directly been in competition with each other on a couple of. But it doesn't feel like that, It doesn't. Yeah. We talk about stuff, and I actually, we're on the same bill sometimes, and we both enjoy ourselves, and we both do our own thing, and the audience enjoy both of us, and it's no problem. I resent the fact that people think I can't be original if there's another South Asian, and there's a small minority who think that, but there are people who think, because then sometimes you'll have your one South Asian, and then you'll have like 3 white men who might all talk about their girlfriend or their wife, And you're sort of like, if two different white comedians do a bit about their girlfriend or their supermarket, but do it in different ways, no one bats an eyelid.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to South Asian acts especially, people do then pay attention, and I think that's potentially a bit unfair.
Yeah, no, I understand. I think you made the point. I think you made it quite well. Don't worry. I don't think you're going to offend anyone. But I was going to touch on that. I've noticed that you are doing a couple of shows at Camden Fringe soon.
I am, yes.
So what are the details?
Yes, so this summer I've teamed up with Mani Ahmed, who's another South Asian comedian. Look at us, 2 on 1 bill.
Where's the white people on that bill, eh?
You as the diversity. No, there is a reason for it. So he's someone who I met at GMB. I actually saw him on stage a couple of times before I interacted with him off stage, and he's fantastic. He's a really good comedian, and I was really enjoying his stuff. And then we made friends off stage, and it's all very nice. But we're doing a show called Other. We're doing it at the Watford and Camden Fringes. So yeah, Watford Fringe. There's 2 dates in July. I think it's 12th and 27th of July, and then doing it at the Camden Fringe at Aces and Eights. I think the dates are 3rd of August and 8th of August. And the show's basically about the experiences of being different, kind of trying or pretending to fit in, and then embracing your otherness. And it's a split bill with a twist where we're both going to do individual sets, and then we're going to come together and do a bit on stage together at the end, sort of interacting with the audience about the theme of otherness. So it should be a lot of fun. So that's what we're doing.
How did that idea come about then? Was it just chatting about and going, let's do something, or one had a particular idea and asked the other, or what?
So I've obviously done a solo show for the last couple of years at the Watford Fringe, and I was kind of thinking over the Christmas period, what are my comedy plans for the next year? What do I want to do? And I thought, look, I'm on the circuit now, I'm making friends with people. I've done things a bit unconventionally. I don't really want to do a solo show because I want to focus on the material I'm working on and just have 20 minutes of, top quality material that's tried and tested, because, I'm working on the micro at the moment. So then, split bill seemed the way to go because I wanted to do something at Watford, and I also felt that I would be ready to do a festival like Camden by the time the summer comes around. So I thought of people, and Manny was the person that I wanted to do it with. So I kind of asked him, would you be interested in this? He said, yeah. We're on the same page about basically everything. And then we came up with the idea for the show. Kyle at GMB, who obviously people like Declan and Barbara on this podcast have spoken about how much he helps acts like ourselves. He helped Manny and I develop the idea from our initial concept to this, and, challenging us and making sure we were getting the most out of ourselves as comedians and people with what we're doing the show about. And I think we've achieved that. So yeah, it was a case of we came together, then we came up with everything, and yeah, I'm fairly happy with where we're at, actually.
So have you got any work in progresses planned leading up to it, or is it just a case of let's go into it?
No, we're currently working on that. We don't have any confirmed and booked in, but that's a big task for this week, actually, is getting that sorted. So we are talking to a few people, but we haven't got it sorted yet. But yeah, hopefully there will be a work in progress or two, because I think that'll be very helpful.
Yeah, good luck. I do wish you the best with that, and I think it'll be great. I really do. I always love the idea of whenever there's a split bill of the two acts kind of combined in some way in a section as well. I always think that's quite nice, because then it feels like a full rounded show rather than just two individual people doing something.
Yeah, 100%. No, I completely agree with you. Yeah.
So have you got any walk-on music planned for it? It's my favourite little question of if you become famous. Do you have any walk-on music for your special?
Yeah, so we will do walk-on music for the show. I don't know what it will be yet. But in response to the famous walk-on music question of yours, Mark, I love walk-on music. I know you do too. I love the concept of walk-on music. I think it's great. I'm a big fan. I think if I were to do, get successful and whatever, if I were to go down the generic route, which we know I don't often do, but I'll answer that side of it, is I'd probably go with a boppy Indian song. I think it's a bit redundant me naming names here, but but a sort of boppy Indian song that works for walk-on. There was one time, because Top and Bottom Comedy, great gig.
Yep.
They do walk-on music. And when I did it last year, I had the Thomas the Tank Engine theme as my walk-on music.
I love it. I love alternative stuff. I really do.
Because I don't anymore. I used to open my set with the line "I love trains," and then make an autism and trains joke, which I did drop from my set because I thought it was a bit cliche and not as authentic as I want to be. But that's what it used to be. So I literally had the Thomas the Tank Engine theme play, walked on stage, took the mic, and went, "I love trains." But I do love. I think if walk-on music as a way of getting a really good opening line, and I like using it that way. So what I would do with my walk-on, and I have done this once before when I was doing a gig at uni, is that Indian song that gets played everywhere. Not J-Ho, but the ones like ding 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 ding. Yeah. I feel really bad doing that, but that's just me describing the song. So there's a version of it. Well, I don't know what to call it a version. I think his name is Andrew Biggie Morris. It's this white guy who, there was this viral video several years ago of, I think he was in a car and his mates are filming him and he's just doing it out loud without any backing. So he's just and then doing his interpretation of the words. So he's just literally, it's just a guy and it's on Spotify. So they made it into a genuine single. But there's no instruments. It's just this guy into a mic going ding, ding, ding. So I once used that as my walk-on music at uni, where I think the way I described the form was, gave the timings, I was like, play it loud. People need to hear what this is.
Yeah.
I went up, took the mic and just went, that's a bit racist.
Yeah.
And people found it really funny. And if you do a deep dive into my Instagram, there is a video of it somewhere there.
Okay, great.
I think. But I think that's what I do, because I think that creates an opening to the set that people would find funny. So I think.
Yeah.
I actually, when I did that, I did stitch up the tech person who at the time was new. I did become friends with him. And lovely guy. But I think it was the first show he was teching for the Comedy Society. I was new. And he didn't know I was going to do that. So he was genuinely, when I said that, he was genuinely worried. So I accidentally stitched him up. I think it works, but obviously I will tell the person that's what I'm doing, which I thought I had. But
it's always good fun. It's always good fun. I mean, looking at kind of stuff that we usually talk about, I don't think we've mentioned your best gigs that you've had so far.
Yeah. I think my best ever gig was my second gig, which was at the Pump House, my theatre that I mentioned earlier. I think it did 20 minutes. I have no idea why, but we've covered that. And it was just a lot of family, friends, people who knew me through the sort of acting and stuff in the audience, and yeah, it went really, really well, and I got a standing ovation at the end, and
Oh, wow.
that felt like a full circle moment, because it was sort of like, I can do this. When I first joined the Pump House when I was like 11 or 12, I was going through my autism diagnosis. I had no confidence. I dropped out on my first show because I was scared.
Yeah.
And then for that to happen, me to like go up as myself and be funny and do that and then get a really good reception for it, that felt really full circle, really good. And that was, probably one of the best moments of my life. Because for the record, I'm not married. I don't have kids. So I'm not dismissing other things. I'm also not as old as people think. Everyone on the circuit thinks I'm like 27, 28. Someone said 30 the other day, and that was quite offensive, actually. But yeah, I'm only 24.
24.
So
yeah,
exactly.
It's just not fair.
So yeah, in my relatively short life, that's a highlight moment. That was really nice. But yeah, I've had on the circuit. I've had some really nice gigs. Like some G&B ones have been great. I think the first time I headlined G&B in December was a really, really nice night. I think I did a headline there in February, which was really good as well. Catsuit Comedy, with which Kath and Sophie run in Chesham. I did that in November, and like the audience just went for me. I know Chris Ali did it the other week, and he was saying something similar. He's like, "That's one of my best ever gigs." That they just went for it, and it was really, really nice. 1 year at Marc for one night only Hitchin, which is a fantastic gig. It's so nice, and everyone was hyping it up before I went there. And I think on the night I said to one of the comedians, "If this isn't good, I have a lot of people to have a go at." But it was. It's an absolutely lovely gig, and Dean runs it. He's such a warm person, and that kind of, it reflects in the way the gig is as well, I think. I had a great time there. That's one of the most fun 10 minutes I've ever had on stage. It's a really good lineup. There was Moss was there, there was you, Max Silver. I think I was sandwiched in between Christian Allman and Kim Hope, who are both like incredible comedians. Duncan Hart was emceeing. There's other names that I'm leaving out, not intentionally. It was just a really good lineup, really good audience. What a great night. Another venue I really like and I've sort of gelled with quite well is downstairs at the King's Head. I know for some people it's a bit 50-50, but both times I've done it, it's gone really well, better than I expected, which feels nice because that's like kind of like Cat Soup and For One Night Only and other gigs like that. It's genuine audience and it's quite an iconic venue, so to have done well there, that feels quite nice as well. But yeah, there's plenty of good gigs on the circuit.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Enjoyed that. So yeah, as we're kind of slowing down and winding this down, then I'm going to introduce the Comedian's Challenge to you. For anybody that's new here, I like to set the comedians a challenge to tell a joke from this joke book called The Little Book of Shit Jokes by Sid Finch. The comedians get to pick any joke from this book to tell on stage, record it, post it on Instagram, tag us in it, and all of that kind of jazz. The trick is that they get to pick it only by page number and not by the words. So what they get, I haven't got a clue until I read it out. So Rohan, if you want to give me a number between 5 and 95.
Is it? Are you still on the first book?
I'm still on the first book, yeah.
So there aren't many numbers to choose from.
There's still a fair number.
All right, so I just have to go for a really random one. Well, I know it's probably taken. I know I'm autistic, but I can't remember all the numbers that have come up so far. So I'll go with my favorite number, which is 11, but I know it's probably taken.
Both on 11 have gone, yes, and they were terrible as well. So yeah, you've got away with that one. Next
Aren't
one.
all of them terrible?
Some aren't. Some are more terrible than others. Let's put it that way.
Let's go with 22.
That was the first ever one picked. by Chris Alley.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, Chris.
And he's recorded that one and put it up, so.
I'm sure, yeah. Let's go really random. 52?
Right, 52. Aha, yes, you have a
Right.
joke. I will send you I'll send you the joke itself, so you don't have to write it down or anything.
Yeah.
The joke is, a giraffe walks into a bar and orders a pint of beer and a packet of nuts. That'll be $9.50, says the barman. He cleans a few glasses and adds, we don't get a lot of giraffes in here. The giraffe says, at those prices, I'm surprised you get anyone. I would shorten it.
Yeah, it's quite a long setup with very little payoff.
Yeah, it's he cleans a few glasses and then doesn't really add anything. It's a giraffe walks into a bar, orders a pint of beer and a packet of nuts. Barman says that'll be $9.50, but we don't get many giraffes in here. Giraffe says, well, yeah, at those prices, I'm not surprised you get anyone.
That is a bad one, isn't it? That is a bad. But I'll see what I can do with it. I will try my best. I will have a think, and I will try and integrate it into a set. I'll see what I can do. It's a challenge. As I said, it's a challenge. So I will see what I can do.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a giraffe. Remember that.
No,
it doesn't have to be a giraffe. It can be any animal. But yeah. Good luck.
Thank you. I will do it. I video record every gig anyway. So yeah, when I do it, I will do all the Insta, tag you, all of that, and
thank you.
We'll have a go.
Excellent stuff. So where can people find you on the socials then?
People can find me. My handle is Rohan Ashar _comedy on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Those are the ones I use. I do have a Facebook page, but I don't really use it.
No.
I mainly use Instagram. That's where I usually after a gig, I'll put a little thing of my story going, I did this gig. It was fun, because it usually is fun. And I'll put all my gigs for the month on there. I'm someone who does the gig lists. I don't know for how much longer I'll do that, but it's a nice way to promote all the gigs. So Instagram is where I'm most active, but I do put little clips everywhere. So yeah, please do give me a follow. And all my show stuff, like my Camden Fringe and mine and Mani's Camden Fringe and Watford Fringe shows, there's not a separate Instagram for that, so that will just be on our ones. So yeah, that's where I am.
And you can find us on Instagram at Open Mic Comedy Pod. We've got a website, openmiccomedypod.com. I always ask whichever platform you're listening to us on, please give it a like, follow, subscribe, all that kind of stuff, so it gets the audience bigger and more people heard. You get to hear these stories from all these comedians from all over and maybe take some inspiration. I'd like to say thank you very much for your time today, Rohan.
Thank you so much for inviting me on. It's been a lot of fun. Nice to come on one of my favourite podcasts.
Thank you for that. Thank you. And for the rest of you, I will speak to you all very, very soon.